distinguished speakers, faculty, and our valued guests, a very good morning. In a world where the tremors of decisions made in Washington, Beijing, or Moscow can be felt in the bustling markets of Delhi NCR, the textile mills of Surat and Mumbai, and the startup hubs of Bengaluru, the need to understand the interconnectedness of our economies has never been more urgent. Today, we gather under the theme Global Resets, Local Ripples. What lies ahead for Indian businesses, not just as observers, but as active participants in shaping the next chapter of India's economic journey. We meet at a time when tariff wars redraw supply chains, climate imperatives challenge industrial models, and geopolitical realignments open both peril and possibility. In this room, the brightest minds will decode how India can not only weather these shifts, but emerge more stronger, more resilient, and globally competitive.
Now, to open this significant gathering and mark the commencement of today's international round conference table, it's my privilege to invite the convener of today's conference, a driving force behind our global outreach, Mr. Chahat Mishra. Mr. Mishra is the head of international relations at Great Lakes Institute of Management, India. He leads internationalization for both Great Lakes campuses, Chennai and Gurgaon.
He comes with a rich experience in academics and corporates, having handled international relations, international sales, B2B sales, strategic marketing, wealth management, and private banking. In his last stint, he served as head international relations and strategic development at Washington University. He's a leading voice as speaker at various national and international forums such as AECSB, EFMD, AMBA, PRME, GBSN, GRLI, QS, and THE. He has pioneered several cutting-edge international initiatives in India, including bringing the best of diplomacy in higher education, widely recognized in the community.
Mr. Chahat serves on the Indian Advisory Group of Chartered Association of Business School, UK, where he is helping in strengthening the higher educations, the ties between India and UK. Mr. Mishra is also a recipient of Indian Advisory Award by IAF. Sir, the stage is yours.
A very good morning, distinguished guests, respected faculty members, our industry partners, students, and my dear friends. I'll start with a basic question. I would say not just one, but maybe a series of questions to commence this special occasion. What if the next big challenge for your business isn't in your industry at all, but in a port thousands of miles away that you've never heard of? What if a tariff dispute between two foreign governments changes the cost of raw materials in your factory overnight? And what if the biggest opportunity for your growth comes not from a domestic policy, but from a global crisis that rewrites supply chains in your favor? Well, it is said that we live in an interconnected world, but that world feels too mild for the reality we're seeing today in the Trumpian era, ladies and gentlemen. We are no longer just connected by shipping lanes and flight routes. We are entangled in a living, breathing network where a decision made in a trade ministry in Washington can affect a farmer in Punjab. A port strike in the Red Sea can delay exports from Gujarat. And a single policy change in Brussels can alter investment strategies in Delhi NCR overnight. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reality of our age. Tariff wars are redrawing the world's trade map. Geopolitical tensions are testing long-standing partnerships and giving birth to unexpected ones. Climate commitments are compelling industries to reinvent the entire business models. Technological disruptions are challenging established players in the industry and empowering nimble newcomers. Well, each of these global resets sends ripples, sometimes small, sometimes seismic, through the Indian economy. And these ripples do not stand and stop at GDP numbers or stock market charts. They reach our factory floors, our classrooms, our job markets, and even the dinner tables at our homes. The theme of today's conference is Global Resets, Local Ripples, What Lies Ahead for Indian Businesses. It could not be more timely, more urgent, and more consequential. We meet here not just merely to discuss events, but to understand the forces shaping them. And more importantly, to ask a very pertinent question. Please hear me out. How does India position itself not as a passenger in these currents, but as a captain driving the course? This is why we have gathered here with some of the finest minds today. Individuals who have stood at the intersection of policy and practice, of ideas and execution. They have not just witnessed history, they have in many ways shaped it. We are honored by the presence of Dr. Swapan Dasgupta, veteran journalist, former MP, Rajya Sabha, Government of India. We also welcome Mr. Ankit Jhamb, Chief Learning Officer, Grand Thornton, Bharat, LLP. Ms. Devika Diwan, Senior News Editor, NewsX, will be moderating our panel today. And we are also joined by Dr. Mathew, our Principal, Great Lakes, Gurgaon. Mr. Srijan Singh is just coming along, and he's on the way and will be joining us shortly. But to mark the commencement of our journey, we will hear ideas from them that will challenge us to think. And challenge not just for us to think, but to challenge our assumptions. Insights that sharpen our strategies and perspectives that widen our view of the world. This is not a conference. It is a collective brainstorming session for the India of tomorrow. The question is, will India be a chapter in that story, or will we be the author? I leave you with that question. With that, I would like to call on the MC to the dais.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra, for every energizing welcome you have given to us. To truly understand the ethos and the vision that Great Lakes drives, let us now witness our journey, our milestones, and our missions encapsulated in a corporate film.
Welcome to Great Lakes Institute of Management. In just 20 years, we have transformed from challenger. Welcome to Great Lakes Institute of Management. In just 20 years, we have transformed from challengers to leaders, pioneering consistent innovation in management education. What began as a startup in a small rented building in Chennai is now among India's largest and top-ranked business schools, with 2 campuses in Chennai and Gurgaon. Our founder, Padma Shri Dr. Bala V. Balachandran, envisioned transforming management education by creating a world-class institution in India with the motto of Global Mindset, Indian Roots. We have benefited from the guidance of thought leaders from around the world in our business and academic advisory councils, helping us constantly innovate to meet the emerging needs of the industry.
The key to our success over the past 20 years has been our relentless focus on the needs of our stakeholders, be it our corporate partners or our students. We have always strived to stay relevant to business needs. Our strength is our world-class faculty and staff, who are absolutely committed to ensuring the best possible student outcomes and equipping our students with the most appropriate skills and perspectives to succeed in today's dynamic marketplace. Over the past 20 years, we have embraced the idea of change and technology to foster a culture of relentless innovation.
We are among the first B schools in India to introduce the one-year MBA program with a global faculty model.
And we were the first to offer specializations in business analytics in 2013 and followed it up with AI, ML and blockchain in 2017.
This year, after extensive discussions with industry leaders, we redesigned our PGPM program with additional industry concentrations and significant experiential learning through labs to build future-ready skills.
We were the youngest institution in India to receive the prestigious AMBA accreditation, and in 2023 we earned AACSB accreditation.
Today, Great Lakes is among the only 10 schools in India with the prestigious Double Crown and the youngest to achieve that feat.
We are home to the first LEED Platinum rated Green Campus in South Asia.
Our experiential leadership program, Karma Yoga, represents innovation in character building through community service, which is again helping those who are at the base of the pyramid.
Our list of firsts continues to grow.
Today, Great Lakes attracts students from across the country with our applications increasing every year for the last decade. Our selective admissions process ensures that we have a fantastic diversity of students inside the classroom, and that enables excellent peer learning as well as great talent for the industry.
With a curated set of students, innovative and cutting-edge curriculum, inputs coming from industry, we provide high-quality business-ready talent to our corporate partners, meeting their unique requirements.
We also partner extensively with our industry clients to offer innovative executive education programs, helping them develop their leadership talent and creating further impact.
Leveraging our strategic location in the Delhi NCR corporate hub region, Great Lakes' Gurgaon campus has grown exponentially. We've been able to attract exceptional faculty, staff and students in the last few years. We have also access to extensive industry expertise, which translates into cutting-edge, industry-relevant courses which are designed, curated and delivered by experts from the industry.
With pride and gratitude, I can say that over the past 20 years, we have actually made a global impact with over 13,000 alumni in 33 plus countries, and all of them creating a mark around the world and fostering innovation.
The credit for our success goes to our exceptional faculty and staff who go well beyond their call of duty. The guidance we receive from our leaders on our advisory councils and our corporate partners who stand by us every year. But most importantly, to our dear students and alumni. Looking to the future, our goal is to have an even greater impact both in India and globally. Great Lakes remains committed to nurturing socially sensitive and business-ready leaders with a commitment to innovation and excellence. Our journey of 20 years is just the beginning. Together with our partners, we will continue to lead with a futuristic orientation and help nurture the leaders of tomorrow.
Great Lakes. 20 years of innovating, transforming lives and impacting organizations.
So that was a short glimpse of the Great Lakes story. Now, to speak about our academic vision and the role of thought leadership in times of global uncertainty, I now invite a stalwart of marketing and management education, our principal, Dr. Jones Mathew. Well, Dr. Mathew has 34 years of corporate and academic experience in marketing, sales, vendor development, and international procurement. He has worked in 6 national, international, private, and government sector firms during his corporate employment. A PhD from IIFT, New Delhi, India. His research and teaching areas include brand marketing, sustainable marketing, CSR, services marketing, and travel and tourism. He has authored 15 popular and award-winning, internationally published business school case studies and writes frequently on business and education topics for national and international business and popular press outlets. Dr. Jones Mathew also leads accreditations and rankings at Great Lakes Institute of Management, Gurgaon.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, thanks a ton to our distinguished guests here. Dr. Suresh Prabhu will be probably joining online. Dr. Swapan Dasgupta, thank you very much for being here. As was mentioned by Chahat, Mr. Srijan is on his way. I'm looking forward to him joining us. Mr. Ankit Jhamb from Thornton and Ms. Devika, Diwan. Esteemed guests from industry, thank you for being here with us, and the media, faculty and staff colleagues, and of course, dear students. It is a pleasure to host the International Roundtable Conference on the Global Trade and Tariff Turmoil that has been unleashed. The speaker before me gave you a roundup of how things have become so interconnected that we can barely insulate ourselves from what's happening around the world. We have fortunately a very fabulous panel of renowned parliamentarians and an industry stalwart to be guided in this discussion by an established and respected news anchor. And on behalf of the management of Great Lakes Institute of Management, Gurgaon, I extend a very warm welcome to each one of our esteemed panelists to our institution to deliberate on this critical and pressing development. Of all the things which have happened around us in the past few months, I think the most impactful one has been the tariff wars, which has been unleashed by the United States government against India, which was designed to shock our trade relations, economic aspirations, and strategic autonomy. And it is bound to have profound implications for our economy, for our way of life, I suppose, for years to come. So setting the scene, what's really happening here? First of all, earlier this month, on August 6, 2025, the US imposed an additional 25% import tariff on Indian goods, citing India's continued purchases of Russian oil. This raised the total tariff burden on Indian exports to a staggering 50%, which is probably a level unmatched by most other trading partners. For us, this was definitely something to ponder on and frame our responses to it. Now, the US administration framed this as pressure to curb India's energy ties with Russia. Obviously, this is a world where multipolarity is what we aspire to, whereas other powers may want us to be more, standing in line with what they demand. India has declared that it will not succumb as it has to defend its farmers and broader economic interests, and that is probably going to come up at different points during our panel discussion. What's been the economic impact? A little bit of research tells us a lot of things which are, I don't want to use the word, but alarming. For example, the steep tariff surge threatens to upend several corners of the Indian export economy. Textiles, gems and jewelry, carpets, shrimps, home textiles, diamond polishing, all of these which are labor intensive and export driven sectors, they face sharp declines in demand and profitability. Analysts warn of possible up to 70% drop in US sales. In fact, a news article this morning talked about that 55% of our trade with the US is going to be affected. In states like Kerala, agricultural exports such as cashews, rice, vegetables, fruits, and seafood destined largely for the US face significant fallout. In Punjab's industrial city of Ludhiana, exporters fear order cancellations amounting to a humongous 1 lakh crores, jeopardizing local manufacturing and employment. Ratings agency Moody's cautions that the tariffs could weaken India's manufacturing ambitions and drag down economic growth. The rupee is under pressure, as it has been for some time, raising inflation risks and casting uncertainty on capital flows. What is the political and strategic fallouts? On the diplomatic front, you're all aware as you go through the news streams The rise of tariffs has strained US-India relations, a strategic partnership built over many decades, facing its worst turbulence in years. In fact, this morning I read that one of the biggest networking golf events has been called off between the Indian and US sides. That networking event was supposed to be a platform for diffusing this through back channels. That's been called off. However, not everything is bad on their side. There are some US lawmakers who have slammed this tariff tantrum, as they call it, as being harmful to decades of diplomacy between the two countries. India's Make in India initiative, aimed at nurturing domestic manufacturing, now confronts serious challenges. Calls are mounting for boycotts of American brands from nationalism supporters, fueling anti-American sentiment. On the energy front, one example is Nayara Energy, an Indian refinery with ties to Russia, saw the State Bank of India halt international trade services to avoid secondary sanctions and penalties. This is the situation on the political, economic, and trade frontiers that we as a country are facing. Therefore, the topic, global resets, it's going to be some time before the reset actually happens. It's still a work in progress. Negotiations are on. We are hopeful that both sides would be continuing to support the conversations. What are India's strategic responses? We are planning a multi-pronged approach. Diversifying markets, protecting ourselves. Leaders are exploring new trade partners, probably within BRICS, as you'll have been reading the news. One of the first fallouts of the tariffs was President Lula of Brazil wanting to speak with his Chinese counterpart and the Indian counterpart. Right? So probably BRICS is another frontier, which is hopefully going to be a support system against what's happening. Retaliation or engagement, that's the question. While India is exploring counter tariffs, it is also signaling willingness to cut tariffs on certain US agricultural goods, such as almonds and cheese, as negotiation gestures. Gesturing is very important in international trade, and the Indian side is open to it. The question is the other side open to it? To shield impacted businesses, the Indian government proposes credit guarantees ranging between 10 to 15% for struggling MSMEs and exporters. We are also planning to do self-reliance narrative. Prominent Indian voices are urging India to assert its dominant economic destiny, break dependency, and build inward strength. So in summation, just to set the tone for what's going to follow in the conversation with the panel, the US tariff escalation marks a watershed moment in India's economic journey. Domestic industries, farmers, exporters, and manufacturing agendas are all grappling with acute uncertainty. Yet this crisis also galvanizes India's resolve, pushing us toward diversification, internal reform, and strategic autonomy. In addition, we are sitting close to neighbors who've been trying to undermine our growth and place at the table story and narrative. And we're all familiar with very recent rhetorics which are happening from across the border, which probably appear to me like a dog in the manger attitude. And there have been some very interesting analogies which have been put forth. All of this could be a watershed moment when India would have to stand strong and united in shaping a resilient and self-determined economic future, one that ensures India's place not as a follower, but as a confident leader on the global stage. It is with great earnestness that I look forward to the roundtable discussion to follow in a few minutes, and my gratitude once again to the esteemed panelists on behalf of the management, faculty and staff, and students of Great Lakes Institute of Management, Gurgaon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mathew. We now invite Mr. Chahat Mishra, Head of International Relations at Great Lakes, on the dais to introduce our keynote speaker, who has taken the time from his busy schedule to join us virtually on this special occasion. So please.
It is indeed an honor for us to invite a distinguished statesman whose vision has shaped India's trade policies, infrastructure, and global standing. Joining us virtually, please welcome Shri Suresh Prabhu, former Union Minister and Member of Parliament, Government of India. Shri Suresh Prabhu is a visionary leader, global policy strategist, and a sustainability advocate with an illustrious career spanning governance, international diplomacy, finance, and academia. Having served as a Union Cabinet Minister in 10 key portfolios and as a 6-time Member of Parliament, he has played a pivotal role in shaping India's economic, trade, infrastructure, and environmental policies. His expertise spans policy making, strategic global affairs, sustainable development, finance, and governance. A sought-after global thought leader, he has addressed prestigious forums across 120+ countries, advocating for progressive policies in AI, agriculture, trade, climate action, and rural development. He has traveled to over 120 countries across all continents, visited all states in India, and explored nearly 80% of the districts in the country, allowing him to better understand the local issues prevailing in our country, interacting with stakeholders, and bridging the gap between local and global dynamics. Suresh, sir, it's an honor to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us virtually. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, my friends. And sorry, I'm just getting out of my bed because I'm in the wrong time zone. Therefore, but still wanted to join such a great program organized by such a distinguished institution. And Mr. Bala, whom we used to call him popularly, I met him at Kellogg several times when I used to speak there. Also been to the Great Lake Institute on the way to Puducherry in Tamil Nadu. It's away from Chennai to Tamil Nadu, the East Coast. So I'm very happy to be here and very glad that your students are so well informed, or you're trying to keep them so well informed by organizing such roundtables. And you have got such an accomplished, dedicated faculty, which takes time and efforts to make sure that they keep them posted about what's happening around them. Because it's a business school. And many times, and now it's going to happen more, I think, by the time a student joins a program, he'll be having to see a world which will be so different by the time he completes his graduation program. In 2 years is too long a period. There is a power of saying that in politics, 1 week is too long a period. Many things can change. It's true. And now in business, that is truer than what's there in politics. Of course, politics always dominate the economics, but it also makes sure that something is aligned to one another over a period of time. Geopolitics, geoeconomics actually go hand in hand in some form or other. So let me, if I don't know, I was just asking my staff in Delhi whether I can speak a little bit in a manner that I can explain what I'm going to say. I don't have notes or something, I'm just going to speak. I always do that. I'm a illiterate person, never went to a B school like such a distinguished school like you. So therefore, please pardon me for expressing my thoughts to ensure that you get a feel of what's happening. Firstly, let me tell you, before I proceed further, is that I was a commerce industry minister, as my dear friend was introducing me more generously, and I had handled 10 cabinet positions. One of them was commerce and industry minister. And I dealt with Trump 1 administration, exactly the issue that we are discussing today, for a long time. Of course, I also dealt with not only Trump administration globally, on G7 and G20, I was India's shape of a longest period of time. So let me give you a little bit Although I'm not going to tell you what happened during that discussion, etc. But let me tell you that this is not something that is in a way surprising. It is not something which is shocking, but it is certainly something that we should take note of to plan our future in a manner that ensures that we, in fact, do better than what we are doing today. So, firstly, this is like undoing of what had happened over a long period of time. After WTO came into being as a successor to GATT, General Agreement of Trade and Tariff, which was an agreement by its definition, but not an institution, not an organization. So WTO was created specially to overcome the shortcomings of having something like GATT to regulate the global trade. And that resulted in the world economy growing at a very fast pace. Unprecedented growth happened. As it always happens when such massive changes are taking place, by law of nature itself, there has to be some gainers, some losers. Now it's a question, how do you identify gainers and losers? For example, today the US is saying they have been a victim of the global trading system. President Trump says US has been taken for a ride by its trading partners. Now, if you go by the trade deficit, its argument holds. But if you go by the general economy of US, it actually gives a completely different picture. Number one, US has huge trade deficit, no doubt about that. But US has bigger fiscal deficit. US is the biggest borrower of the world. US economy is driven by consumption, not by investment, because US doesn't have savings at all. And that's why US is the net biggest foreign borrower. So if no saving, no investment, either at the household, some corporates, of course, have savings. Some of the tech companies are sitting with billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. Warren Buffett, his company has several $100 billion in the bank account. He's waiting for the right opportunity to invest. But point is, US is therefore not savings oriented, therefore not investment led growth. It is consumption led. More than 85% of US economy is based on consumption. What is consumption? The consumers have to keep buying, right? More the consumers buy, more will be the growth in the GDP. Now, consumers were buying foreign goods because they were cheaper, better than what was produced in the US. And that's how the trade deficit increased. But a strain on US economy is not only on account of trade deficit, but it's also on account of fiscal deficit, which has nothing to do with trade deficit. That is, we do with US domestic as well as foreign policy. They fought wars and they created deficits. They went into something which was not necessary, and today they are cutting down on something in that big, beautiful bill of what is going to the poor of the US. And mind you, US also has poor people. So their per capita income is, they're the largest economy, maybe 89,000. But point I'm saying is, US is now playing a card of victim. And I was saying losers and winners. So US is saying we opened up trade and we lost in that bargain. It's true if you go by only one number of trade deficit. But if you go by the consumption which led to US growth and made it the largest economy, it is not true. But in any case, rather than going into what US is doing or what US problems are, let us look at a broader picture. The growth of the world economy, which is unprecedented, happened because of trade. Trade was driving the growth in the global economy. The trade created what is now called as something very unique, as well as something which is very beneficial to many countries in the world, is called supply chain or value chains. That means Nike may be selling shoes in the US. They may be getting it designed in Italy, maybe, or maybe in the US itself. The trademark is obviously registered in the US. So intellectual property rights are in the US. Part of that is manufactured in Vietnam or in China. Some part may be manufactured in some other countries in the world. And now finally you're selling the product. That's called a supply chain. Apple, American company, designed in the US. But most of the iPhones are manufactured, used to be, which are sold in US, manufactured in China, and now they are trying to also source it from India. In fact, last year was more from India than from China in the US market. But this is called supply chain or value chain. If you are doing a designing of a construction site, it could be designed in Paris. The material could be sourced from Asia. Some raw materials necessary for processing the components may be from Africa. And finally, it will be sold either Europe or US or any other place. Some raw materials could have come from Latin America as well, from country like Brazil, which is so rich in minerals. But point is, the world was functioning on this basis of global value chain and supply chain. And that was made possible because all countries realized it's the best thing to do, because what is the cheapest? Why should I make it, or as you make it in a business school, always study theoretically, make or buy choice. What you should make on your own shop floor, or what is better to buy from outside, and then what makes economic sense, because finally it is going into the final product, which has to be sold in market. That's why you're doing all these exercise. If the final product is so expensive and so unaffordable to consumers, you'll not be able to sell it. So this whole exercise was ruled on that basis, and that's why so-called globalization happened. Today, that whole supply chain, global value chains are going to be under stress and strain. And at least Trump is trying to unwind it. He's saying everything should be made in the US. Firstly, the logic itself is flawed. Because, for example, he has even put taxes on components, import duties on components. If you want to make something in US, you mean to say that even the components will be made in the US? It is possible, of course, everything is possible. But what I'm saying is it possible in the medium term, short term? If no, what is the sense of putting tariffs on components? Because then how will you assemble it if GM, General Motors, or even Tesla is going to make something in the US as a final product? There are hundreds of components that are necessary to make a car. Or the Boeing is going to be finally making an aircraft in the US. Several tens of thousands of parts are necessary to actually put into aircraft, many times more than the automobile. So if you are going to put a import duty, tariffs on that, how final product will be competitive, good product? And even then, if you want to make all components and everything in the US, how much time will it take to do that, to develop that entire ecosystem to manufacture? So therefore, this whole idea is very short-sighted and will have an adverse impact on the rest of the world for sure, but also on the US itself, undeniably. Now I know it's a very limited time, so therefore let me come to, so broadly, the global trading system, global economy has survived, has thrived on the basis of certain fundamental factors, which are the opening markets, which was allowing market access to other countries, and therefore the best in the global trading system could survive, and that would also benefit the end consumer because he's buying, and finally end consumer is going to be deciding what is good and bad, and that's why he's choosing that. Now, we are entering a system which is no longer seamless trading, no longer flow of goods and services without hindrance, but trade blocks will become a reality, which already happened. Every country is trying to work out something, and the US, to top it all, who was the champion of free trade, is now the first country, the biggest country, biggest contributor to global GDP, is now reversing this entire trend. So this is how broadly what is happening from India's perspective. We've got about something 87 to 90 billion dollars of merchandise export to US. When you say export, you must always remember there are two kinds of exports. One is merchandise exports, the manufactured goods and others. There's other kind of export, which is services exports. And also, as the head of international relations was just speaking, agriculture export. Incidentally, the first agriculture export policy for India, it was never there, was made by me when I was Commerce Industry Minister. And agriculture exports have gone up from less than $20-25 billion to almost more than $50 billion, only thanks to this policy. But US is claiming to have merchandise deficit, but has a surplus on services. So the convenient argument you can always make. US technology companies who have several, at least few trillion dollars of market cap in the, like all the type, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, all these companies, Facebook, many of them have $1 trillion of market cap. Where do they sell their products? Would they have market cap if large markets of the rest of the world are not buying the products? And that particularly, we have downloaded something, so we don't realize, but that is also an import that we are making from that country in the form of technology. So anyway, this is the situation in which India, for example, will now have to face a situation wherein our biggest trading partner and the only country we have such a large trading surplus in the US, $47 billion. And that country is put very punitive and very unreasonable import duties on imports to be made from India in the US markets. So there are ways of dealing with this. In fact, I was talking to some of my colleagues in the government, very senior colleagues, only 2-3 days back. Also explained to them what could be done. And I'm sure this will happen in the next few days. We don't have to worry in a way that this is the end of the day. It is certainly a challenge, but not something which cannot be addressed or cannot be resolved. Now, the title of this program, if I can recollect, was The Changes, Global Turmoil and Local Ripples, something like that. So yes, everything has local impact. Because as I mentioned earlier, we are so much integrated through value chain and supply chain. Somebody who is cultivating rice in a field of Andhra Pradesh will not even realize that what he is now working. Of course, most of the farmers in India are so small, less than hectare land. So therefore, they don't have exportable surplus. But even if you pull something together, comes to the market, and you are exporting rice to other countries, the farmer in that particular farm will not realize that whatever Trump is saying is going to make an effect on his life. A fisherman who is producing aqua products, marine products, he's going into the deep sea, getting something, not deep sea. Or farmers cannot go in deep sea because it's not a corporate fishing in India in any case. But wherever they go and get this, He may not realize now. He's not his buyer, because the farmer directly not exporting. There is somebody intermediary who is buying from him and then selling it. So that intermediary may not buy now. And therefore it will have its repercussions. So what you're saying is absolutely right, that all these global changes have local impact, which you will not be able to pinpoint in a way that poor farmer or poor fisherman can understand, or a small enterprise SME will comprehend, because SME is selling product to a large company who assembles it and then exports it out. So the SME will not get order now from the large company, because the large company's export market is affected, at least for the time being. So this is definitely, global trading has local impacts. And I would tell you something which we should take it in a different perspective rather than taking it as something how India should deal. It's something we should think about, and we should accept the reality that this is redrawing of global economy. As I said earlier, geopolitics is going to influence geoeconomics. Has always done, always been playing that role. So geopolitics is changing, geoeconomics has to follow. Sometimes geoeconomics influence geopolitics. Either way. But today, these changes are going to be of a very significant impact on all economies, and India should be prepared to weather that issue. So let me tell you, way back, when I was Commerce Minister, I'm talking about 2017, there was no sign of either China will have conflict with China or will have ever such a trade war with US. I had prepared a roadmap for how India should work and have economic strategies to attract more capital, have bigger market share. What are the changes that we need to domestically as well as globally? I had appointed a task force under chairmanship of Dr. Sujit Bhalla, who was then became India's representative to the IMF. And that committee had people like Dr. Jaishankar, who is today's foreign minister, but that time he was working with private company. I had appointed some top people in that committee, and we have a roadmap ready. Then, separately, I had asked Exim Bank to prepare how do you increase India's access to other markets which are either small or we are not accessed at all. So therefore, first time, India government, we did a market research, market surveys. And we found out which product domestically has a potential to export, which is not happening on a scale that is necessary, or we need to develop new products which can access that market, because we are finding out the market is what is the demand for a particular kind of product. And therefore, we have done this matrix of which product can go to which geography. So this type of a product geography matrix was prepared. And this was way back, 9 years ago, where there was no sign of any such tension. Because always say that we should be ready to face any situation at any given point of time. And that's why I did it. Some people used to ask me also that why you are doing this. I said, I must make my country ready to weather any kind of situation if it emerges. And today we have that already with us. So let me, I know I'm just looking at the watch. I think I probably must have spoken longer than what I was supposed to. But please be assured, as students of business, students of management, student who has to understand that there is always what happens internationally has impact locally. And locally, we should be ready to actually react to any such situation in a manner that protects our own interests. So there are many strategies for that, which I think some other time when I'm on the campus, I will try to explain that to you. But today's business students must understand one thing, and that's what I said. When you join the business school and by the time you leave it, the world will be completely different, which is no exaggeration, which is a reality. and you should be ready to face the world, which will be again different after you leave the campus of the school, because the changes are going to be so rampant and so profound. So let me wish you all the best. And I can tell you something, that this is an inevitable process which has started, unwinding of what was accepted as a normal situation. And we should really be able to work on that as we go along. So thank you, my friends. For congratulations once again to you. When I started my program, I said good morning. Now when I'm winding up, I'm saying good afternoon. So you can imagine in such a short time how the nomenclature of addressing each other changes. The world will change even at a faster pace than what I just did. So take care, be ready, never get overawed by what's happening around you, because these are the things which will always happen. As we always say, where the going gets tough, tough gets going, right? We should be the tough ones. We should be always on the go whenever situation demands. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Suresh Prabhu. I think this was quite, I would say, a story right from how the geopolitical upheavals are impacting the Indian economy, and especially with the tenure which you have had, and I would say an excellent tenure with the government. There's a lot of learnings today for our management students. You've spoken about resilience. You've spoken about how the government is working relentlessly towards protecting its national interests. I think the way you have conveyed that to us, I think for that, thank you so much, sir, for spending your time with us. But before you leave, sir, if with your permission, we have some of our students who would want to ask questions, but I would just, in the interest of time, maybe take 2 questions, if that is okay with you, sir.
Yeah, but very quickly, club both the questions and tell me.
Sure. So can we have the questions from the audience? If you can just raise your hands, we will take both at once. Yes, please.
Hello. Good morning, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. So my name is Amal, and my question is, beyond economics and governance, is there a field such as art, history, or philosophy that you might believe every future leader should study to make wiser and more humane decisions?
All right. So we'll take the next question as well together, so that sir can answer it.
What was the question? What was the question? Please,
if you can repeat.
Please, I think I request the moderator to please, because I think your mic, I can hear better. So anyway, you take the second question, yeah.
Second question, if we can just have.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Shikhar. First of all, thank you for such an insightful session. Sir, I'd like to ask you, if you had to define leadership without using any kind of metrics, how would you do that, sir?
Okay.
So
what are the questions, please?
So the first question, which was asked by one of our students, is if there was a subject which is that you would want to focus on for advising our management students to study other than art, management, philosophy, what subject would that be?
Okay. And the second one?
And the second question is, if you can tell us more about leadership, maybe, you know, in a nutshell, 1 or 2 sentences in terms of how you see leadership changing in the management times, in the current time.
First is what subject you should focus on is that you should not focus on one particular subject. Your eyes and ears should always be open. Be not just go by what you can learn on the campus alone, but should be ready to learn on your own and also react to situation as will emerge. So what is important to learn on a campus is to be ready to face any situation. So you are, as you say, EQ, your emotional quotient or IQ, of course, which all of you will definitely have, is something you should try to fine tune in a way that anything that you encounter with, as we always say, that you should get over the fear of unknown. I would say the subject that you should focus on is what is not known. And that is what is going to really make you different than the rest of the crowd. If you can actually face a situation on your own, any situation, of course, what that situation will be is not known today, right? And that's the challenge of the world that we are entering today, is that things will change so fast. Could anybody would have imagined that US will have problem with the NATO allies? Could anybody would have imagined that US will punish more to Canada with whom they don't have even a border? You can just cross. When you go to that, you want to make a call to your friend or your relative in Canada, your calling number you starts with 1. What is US calling number? 1. So they have same calling number. They play the basketball tournament in US, which because US think they are the world, they call it World Championship. The only other country which participates is Canada. So that such close relationship could result into such an acrimonious one. Could anybody would have imagined any time? As the previous Prime Minister of Canada said, that we have done so much for US, we cannot even imagine. So this is something which a subject, we wanted me to know what subject you should focus on. Is not a subject, but be objective, not subjective. That is what you should be in the time ahead. So I am sure you are in a good place. So right now you are in Great Lakes. So you have learned to swim in the lake, but you'll have to be ready to swim in the ocean. And that's a lesson that you form. Lakes are quiet, oceans are always turbulent, and that's what we'll have to do from Great Lakes to a ocean, which will open up new ideas for you. The second is leadership. I'm a wrong person to speak on leadership because I am not a leader. But leadership is never based on the office you occupy. That's not leadership. If you're occupying certain office, the chair elevates you. So the height of the chair we decide how big you look. But in my opinion, if you can actually demonstrate your own abilities without being on a chair, and then people judge the height of what you are, not by adding the height of the chair to it, that is what makes you a leader. And that leadership is not only political leadership, not in government, but leadership is in many spheres. Even in your classroom, if you are trying to be friendly with others, try to take them along with you, you are trying to really emerge as somebody. If any of your friend has a problem, he'll be the first person to approach you. You are already a leader. So go-to person is a leader also. But in my opinion, leadership will not come through training. It can, in a way. Leadership has to be something which comes from within you. And I'm sure the training that you got here, you'll be able to work out a path for yourself to lead some issues. But at the same time, I will tell you something. Don't keep mission of being a leader. Leader is leader when they are followers. You cannot have leadership without followers. So try to do something which people will like to follow you. Not just on social media, but will like to follow you in real life. And that can happen only when you demonstrate certain qualities which people feel like following. So try to be a good human being. Try to do that. And the kind of following that you'll get as being a good human being will be far, far better and bigger than just being a leader in itself. And then when you have become a good human being, you will tell yourself, I don't want to be a leader. I want to be in this position of being a good human being. So try to work towards it. Thank you, my dear friend.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suresh. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to welcoming you sometime at the Great Lakes campus. With that, we will now move on to the main panel segment of the conference. Before we begin, let me formally introduce our distinguished speakers present on the dais. Dr. Swapan Dasgupta is a well-renowned Indian journalist and politician. He has served as an MP for Rajya Sabha, In 2015, Sri Swapan was conferred with the Padma Bhushan for his contribution to literature and education. He has served in editorial positions over several English dailies in India, including the Indian Express, the Times of India, the Statesman, India Today, among others. He regularly features on English news channels. You might have seen him on various news channels on debate shows. He received his early education at St. Paul's School, Darjeeling, Lama Tinier, Calcutta, and St. Stephen's, Delhi. Thereafter, he went on to earn an MA and a PhD from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause for Sri Swapan Dasgupta. Next, we have with us Mr. Srijan Singh, who is an author, public speaker, education innovator, and social entrepreneur. He is an IIM Ahmedabad gold medalist and has worked as, some of you would already be knowing this, he has worked as an advisor to the 11th President of India, Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. Currently, he is the CEO and founder of A.P.J. Abdul Kalam Center in New Delhi, a not-for-profit organization working on integrated missions across multiple dimensions in an effort to continue on the vision and the works of Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. He has written 15 books, including 3 as a co-author with Dr. Kalam. His books have sold more than 4 lakh copies and has been translated into 12 different languages. That's incredible. In 2012, Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam and Srijan Singh founded the Kalam Foundation, where Srijan was appointed as the managing director by President Kalam. After the demise of Dr. Kalam in 2015, Srijan continued the visions of the 11th president by running under the banner of Kalam Center, where he is the CEO and founder. He's also a member of the research board of the Deen Dayal Research Institution founded by Nanaji Deshmukh and whose first chairman, ladies and gentlemen, whose first chairman was Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. He has been recognized as one of the premier alumni of IIM Ahmedabad, which awarded him the Young Alumni Achievers Award for Social Impact and Public Service. Thank you so much, Srijan, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for Srijan. We are also pleased to welcome Mr. Ankit Jhamb, who is the Chief Learning Officer for one of the world's largest consulting organizations. All of you must have heard, Thornton, Bharat. He has over 15 plus years of experience in capability development, coaching and mentoring, and driving organizational cultures. He has worked across various geographies and holds comprehensive exposure in setting up capability development, architecture for various organizations. Ankit was recognized as the top 100 young HR leaders under 40 in the year 2020. He was also awarded India's Young Mind in the year 2022. A natural storyteller, poet, was watching some of your interesting poems on YouTube. So he's also a poet, marathon runner, philanthropist, and an author. He's been living his life with passion and fulfillment. Please give a big round of applause for Ankit Jhamb. Next, we have with us Ms. Devika Diwan, a very good friend who's a prominent anchor and a senior news editor at NewsX, known for her extensive experience and incisive reporting. If you've seen the news channels, many of the most important interviews which are today part of our television network, some of them have been interviewed by Devika by with various dignitaries, including within India as outside India as well. She's become a leading voice on a diverse range of subjects, including geopolitics, foreign affairs, domestic politics, human rights, space, and law. Her career is marked by a history of interviewing influential figures, as I mentioned, from sitting union ministers and former ministers to chief ministers, foreign member of parliaments, diplomats, scientists, and astronauts. Devika, it's an honor to have you. And of course, we are also joined by our principal, Dr. Jones Mathew, who has joined us for this discussion. With the stage set, context clear, and the voices assembled, we now embark on the heart of today's conference. Global resets, local ripples, what lies ahead for Indian businesses. May this dialogue spark new thinking, question old assumptions, and chart fresh pathways for Indian businesses. Devika, over to you.
Thank you so much. That's the moment that I was waiting for, certainly. Vivek, over to you. There's been so much that's been spoken about already, and Dr. Suresh Prabhu has also given us a lot of food for thought in the lovely speech that he just delivered. But we've tried to divide up what we're going to be doing over the course of the next hour into 3 clear segments, because when Chahat reached out and he said we want to talk about global resets, local ripples, in my mind there are 3 clear aspects today which will define what Indian businesses will be all about. The first one, of course, is global tensions, which can be wars, conflicts, and of course everyone's favorite word right now is tariffs. So we will be discussing that. But there is so much that's happening, as Mr. Prabhu also pointed out, that by the time the students here graduate, we don't know what's going to be the next big tech revolution. Right now it's AI. We don't know how that's going to change the face of Indian businesses and how we wish to even communicate with each other. And of course, the third part, which we want to leave behind for good reason, because it wasn't the greatest memory, but there's been a major change in the way the world functions. We now come to define the world in very clear terms, and what I'm talking about is COVID. I know everyone sitting here is now used to saying this happened pre-COVID or it happened post-COVID. But because it was an unhappy time, and rightly so, we want to move past it, but that doesn't mean that we can't look back and learn from that history. What is it that we need to be prepared for? So those are the segments that we've come up with for our distinguished speakers today. But like I said, everyone's favorite word right now is tariffs, so we're going to start with that. I'm going to start with Dr. Swapan Dasgupta. Dr. Gupta, I want to understand from your perspective. Dr. Prabhu made a very interesting remark. He said that the US thinks that it is the world, and perhaps it's that thought process, that philosophy, which has somewhere even propelled the United States of America to become the largest economy, along with, of course, other things. But I want to first understand from your perspective, when we use the term Trumpian era, are we doing ourselves a disservice by once again letting the United States of America say that this is the Trumpian era and you get to call the shots? Or is that the reality of the world that we have to accept?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this round table. You know, the United States, whether we like it or not, happens to be the largest economy in the world. No doubt there are significant challenges, and there was even a possibility at one time that it would be upstaged from its primacy. And I think it was that challenge and the sense of threat which the United States perceived, which was responsible for the election of Donald Trump. I think it's very important to locate why Donald Trump became the President of the United States. His assurance to the people of the United States is, I will restore your greatness. And therefore, when we question various assumptions and moves of Donald Trump, it's very important to locate what are his domestic compulsions. We needn't, of course, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that we should ignore what our domestic compulsions are. But it's important, if we have a rounded analysis, if we want to have a strategic approach to whatever the current problems are, it's important to realize it. There's also, it's important to realize that much of the doomsday predictions which greeted the elections of Trump, mainly by a very partisan US media, have come to naught. They projected there would be a recession almost immediately, which hasn't happened. They projected there would be a runaway inflation, which hasn't happened. And these, in fact, have bolstered Trump's confidence in their ability to what is he doing, in fact? It's not merely that he is expanding the scope of United States markets. What he's trying to do, he's using economics and coupling it with geopolitics. The trouble with India, for example, is not about whether the tariffs should be, that India has a very high protectionist barrier. The trouble with India is that India is also trading with Russia, and with India has certain foreign policy approaches which doesn't suit him. So the issue is not economics. Here he's adding political elements to it. And this is a very important factor of Trump. And Trump has met with a couple of very notable successes. The most important success which he's met is with the European Union. He's more or less bludgeoned the European Union. The European Union is, if you just recall, is an institution which loves to give sermons. It's been the most preachiest, one of the problems which we've had in our FTA negotiations with the EU is that the EU, it's not about, what are the tariffs, how much of market access, etc. It's about them saying, but your carpet manufacturers must have 13 toilets accompanying them. That human rights issues must become a part of this. So the European Union was such an entity, a very sanctimonious body, which thought of itself as the stage army of the good. And for Trump to actually browbeat and say, I don't care about your concerns about having over the environment, we are going to sell you a particular type of gas, you're going to invest in it. And they did. So the issue with India must be seen against a backdrop of Trump being able to steamroll his way over a large area of the world. Now here he comes across India, he comes across Brazil, comes across one or two places in the world, large countries, Russia, China, India, big countries which are saying, sorry, we are not going to oblige. We will negotiate, but you can't dictate. And that's really what it's all about. So I think it's very important to note that unless Trump sees a setback, he's not going to move ahead. He's on a winning spree. And the mind of Trump is, it's not that he has any personal hatred of India. He quite likes India. Yeah. I've been in the United States during the election campaign, and he sort of thought of India as quite a natural sort of entity with which he could always do business. They're good people, he used to say, They're one of our types, They're not troublemakers like, I'm not naming which. But exactly his mindset is that, and someone very rightly described this, is that of a day trader.
Yes.
He approaches it in the morning, books a profit or a loss, but he doesn't carry that mindset about how the company is or how the company isn't for the rest of the time. So it's exactly that mindset. So I think one of the features about dealing with Trump is a sense of tentativeness. We really don't know how it's going to end. But we've seen the worst what he can do. We've got a foretaste of what the worst he can do. And what the worst he can do actually bolsters our sense that we have to basically stand on our own 2 feet as much as possible.
Okay.
Now, we know this is an interconnected world, and you cannot be, like a Gandhian self-sufficient village republic. That's not a viable option any longer. But we've also noted that there are certain features about America which means that the world cannot do without WhatsApp and a few other things. So there is certain strategic clout which the United States has, which even the Chinese have not been able to replace totally. And I think we have to remember that. I think at present what we have to do is take a very, very deep breath, see how the rest of the world functions, how we play along, and at the same time move along, do what we can, just as we did a certain, in this Operation Sindoor,
Yes.
there were certain missiles which were indigenously produced. And this is something which Professor Abdul Kalam at one time pioneered the whole thing is, which we got a lot of flack for also, because a lot of people, but if you, the problem of having an American import, and this is something the Israelis always told us, is that remember they can turn off the supplies at any time. So I personally feel that while a lot of politicos, as my good friend Suresh Prabhu has, is full of certitudes, I think a certain tentativeness is in order when dealing with Trump, because you're not dealing with someone where you know exactly where it's going to end.
Yes.
So keep it open, little open-ended.
So I have a follow-up question on that. You said that we have to take a deep breath and we have to just wait and watch. But while we're doing that, the reason why I asked the question about the Trumpian era is because we were just starting to talk about the India story, the Bharat story, the Bharat era. And I want to understand from your perspective, when you say that America has strategic leverage in terms of a Google, Microsoft, and other such big firms, big companies, big products that we can't live without today, how far away are we in India from building some of those platforms for ourselves? Because that's
The of world cricket is India. If India says we must play a game at 1:30 in the morning, India will play, that game will be played at 1:30 in the morning. Doesn't mean we should always do that, but I think that's very, very important. So it's important, it's worthwhile remembering that in terms of AI, which is the latest sort of flavor of the season, as it were, whereas the entire American markets have more or less been taken over in terms of their strategic weight, and those of you who follow the world stock markets will realize that. The impact of AI in terms of Indian companies is very, very nominal. We are still in the business of body shopping, which is really the lowest end of the value chain. So unless we can climb up to the value chain and our entrepreneurs develop a mentality whereby they think big, which unfortunately some of them don't. And if the going is good from value chain and body shopping, if they think that's the last word, and if you think that, sending garment textiles by screwing the Bangladesh market is your best way, then, you've set your sights very low.
Okay.
I think Indian businesses need to think a little bigger. It's not enough for governments to think big.
Yes.
Governments don't control how businesses run. It's only a nominal thing. Governments can hinder, jeopardize, and make life terrible for the businesses, but they can't really help in boosting businesses too much. So I think it's that which I think, if we talk about the Trumpian era, if we talk about Make in India, we've got to realize ultimately you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink.
Absolutely. Before I move on to the other speakers, and you've spoken about entrepreneurs, and we'll be talking about that as well. But Dr. Gupta, one last question to you. I want to understand from your perspective, how critical do bilateral agreements become in the next coming decades? We've just had a historic deal with Great Britain. Where do you see the future of bilateral trade?
Well, those deals, unfortunately, there was a time when we thought that the WTO was going to set was becoming the norm about how rules-based world order. WTO is history now. I mean, I think we've got to recognize it's no longer going to play a part. So once again, we are back in the business of bilateral, in an era where international bodies are no longer that relevant. The United Nations is a joke. United Nations serves the interests of those who work for the United Nations. And I mean, they're very comfortable, I must say. It's a very good job to have. But it's not anything of any consequence any longer in the world, as we found out from various parts. So yes, it will have a thing. The question, this is a big challenge for Indian diplomacy. You know, I think there was a time when we played the role of supplicants, then became a position where we thought that we'd somehow conquered the world. Actually, it's neither of the two. We've got somewhere in between, which we've got to have a little degree of modesty and an approach. And I think one of the good things which has happened in institutions like yours is that you all are getting a global perspective. The global perspective wasn't there. The global perspective existed only to provide a one-way ticket for a lot of people to go and live in the United States. That a global perspective needs to be done for people in India to work out of India and become a global center. That approach has got to be there also in terms of our diplomacy. We haven't yet acquired that capability, unfortunately, and I think we need to work towards it. It's not merely having the right policies, it's also having the right mindset for it, to be able to deal with people. We are no longer, if we get too preoccupied with the sort of the old third world syndrome, we are not going to do very well. But at the same time, if we have a triumphalist attitude, we've got everything, which a lot of people have. I mean, just because we've dominated the world of cricket doesn't mean we've dominated everything else. I mean, cricket is only played by 10 countries, 12 countries at best. Yes. So I think we have to have that approach whereby we need to go out in the world. We realize India is that the world cannot do without India, but India cannot do without the world. Sometimes we love to think of ourselves as an island, as a subcontinent of self-sufficiency, where everything, I don't know if any of you ever saw a lovely serial which used to be produced in Britain called Goodness Gracious Me. There used to be a character there who's, whenever you asked him, oh, everything started with India. Everything. Oh, Sherlock Holmes. Oh, he was an Indian. He lived above a shop. Someone else, he only worked with his brother. He must be Indian. So you see, if you have that attitude, that all the sort of wisdom, greatness of the world, everything is into India, then again you have to have that modesty and openness about it. Sometimes I feel we have it, and there are other times when we feel we could do better. We could do better. Yeah, thank you. Very good. I want to touch upon what Dr. spoke about. Dasgupta, my name is Dasgupta.
Dr. Dasgupta has spoken about, where he's clearly, in a way, told us that India does depend on the world. While we have to have a sense of modesty as we, of course, continue to rise up the ranks and become, a bigger and bigger economy by the day. But of course, there are lots of young people in the audience as well. I want you to think from their perspective as young innovators, entrepreneurs in the current global scenario. How does one build a business that is resilient to global tensions and supply chain vulnerabilities? Is that even possible?
Thank you for having me here. It's wonderful to be beautiful campus. Wonderful students you have, and it's lovely company we have over here. See, I think about the tariff thing, let's begin there. For the Americans, they enjoyed being the top of the global order, the global police also, and the global superpower up until 1990s somewhere. Then the decline began, and China started challenging them, and we are at a time when, as Dr. Dasgupta was also suggesting, a lot of institutions of the past, right from UN to the World Trade Organization to, I can also say, WHO, they are all collapsing. And that is also because the United States, being at the top of the world economic military superpower, is also sort of fading. New regional superpowers are coming, and this is the struggle which is being manifested in tariffs and conflicts and whatever else is happening. I know we are with US to contain China, we are with China to control the US dollar in BRICS and so on. This is a market, tariff is just one manifestation of a very turbulent time where new global order is emerging.
Yes.
Right? So that's for sure. For the United States, you are an ally only until you are weaker than them. As long as you are unchallengeable, you can't challenge them at all. You are weak, you depend on them, you are an ally. If you stand on your own feet, speak your own words and not the words supplied by them, you very easily become. And this is not just United States, it would be any country who's at the top of the world. If you challenge them, you become an adversary. So congratulations to India for being an adversary now, because you have graduated to the level of United States seeing you as a credible economic adversary. And that's why the tariff comes in. And as Dr. Dasgupta was also saying, part of it is because of the whole Russian deal, which we've done, which we refuse to go back on, because we worry about our own economic goals and our own development goals.
Yes.
Coming to the question, if you are an entrepreneur or an innovator, there are two. If I look at, because I work with the startup ecosystem, at least across so many universities, not all businesses are actually dependent on foreign market per se, or even foreign investment.
Right.
Most of the market is Indian, right? Most of the investment comes from India, at least at an early stage. That's how it is. So you don't have to worry about those 95% startups at all. Now look at those businesses which have grown to the extent or had the business model to serve a client outside India. That is only effective if America is your client right now. Otherwise, there's a whole market. The biggest global trading partners are also the Middle Eastern nations and many others, which see India from a very different light. And let me tell you this, even this whole tariff thing, it's the era of flux. 15th of August they are meeting, Putin and Trump. You never know where this tariff goes then, and Trump is an unpredictable person, and you deal with it. Make an opportunity.
So is Putin, honestly.
So is everybody is unpredictable, because the time is unpredictable, and you have to thrive on this unpredictability than to fear it. So make this an opportunity. What you could do is potentially to plan your business better if you are running a startup at that stage where all this matters. If it doesn't matter, don't worry about it, because worry on your business rather than worrying about geopolitics affecting your business if you are not dealing with international flavor in your business itself. But yeah, a lot of Indian companies, for instance, have diversified with their supply chain through different stakeholders, which are sort of in a zone where if one goes down, the other comes up. You have to see this whole global order in a turbulent time as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to harness, rather than as a fear element. Indians are known to be resilient. And you mentioned COVID.
Yes.
Nobody was more resilient than us. And resilience is a flavor of not just our economy, but also our societal class. So that's how we live. That resilience has to be banked upon. And also, your business planning itself, and if you've seen the startup ecosystem of India evolve over the last 3-4 years, today investors would favor those businesses which have solid bottom lines than just crazy top lines. So if your revenues is not no longer your measure, it's your profit or your P&L statement's last line. That is the measure. So build those rugged models. And if you are, right now you're starting up a business, don't worry about all these things. Your market will be India. India is a huge, huge market. We are not a small island country which doesn't, has so much of interdependency. So you don't worry about that. And all of this is a phase. Trump will go, somebody else will come eventually. Maybe also they'll do the same thing. Global orders will keep shifting. That should not be a worry. So that is one thing. But if you are dependent, diversify your supply chain, diversify your markets. Use, somebody was, I met some of the students and they're saying artificial intelligence we want to use in exploring markets. Do that. Predict where the world is going to be and try to harness it. And that's pretty much all you
Okay,
can
but when
do.
we talk about India's startup ecosystem, we were looking at 1,59,000 startups that were registered as of January 2025. And that's a big change from where India was I would say even when I started my career a decade ago, that's not something that we were talking about. Startups is not a concept that was really known or understood, and all of that has changed. But at the same time, what do you think, in your perspective, needs to be done from the policy point of view, and how do we build on that ecosystem? Because like you said, global leaders will come and go. There will be continuous, as we've said, global resets will continue to take place. And there's a lot of prediction that we are moving into certain decades of unpredictability, uncertainty. There will be more wars, there could be more conflicts, there could be more disruptions. So is there something that can be done from a policy point of view to protect our startups?
See, startup, if you're doing a startup, you are in love with risk. So if you want the government to minimize your risk, you're in the wrong business.
Okay.
So first of all, otherwise find a government job, right? That's amazing, and that's a great job. But then don't do this. But I want to take it in a different sort of a flavor and a run on this. It's not that startups have suddenly come up in India. You said registered startups. So these are ones which are registering with DIPP. This whole belief that India was not a country of startups and business is actually a myth. India was always a country.
Absolutely, I agree with you. All I'm saying is that we weren't talking about the term startup.
So suddenly we are hearing terms like, you know, the horse with a horn, that unicorn, right?
Yes.
So suddenly you're talking about those terms. These are Western terms. Indians were always great at, you have to be in Gujarat to realize, what all trade, how far back it goes, how Tamil Nadu was manufacturing steel, which was being transferred and sold to Damascus, which were then building daggers to sell to Roman legions, right? And this is 2000 years ago. So Indians were the global traders and startup stars. It's just our belief that suddenly these terms have come up. But I want to tell you something about this, and this is one observation which I have had in, especially in the recent trends. A lot of what we innovate needs support from the government. It has become a new trend. Whether this is right or wrong, we can debate later. But Dr. Dasgupta was talking about the missiles, right? BrahMos, I think, what he was referring to. BrahMos is a Russia-India joint venture, now entirely Indian venture, and we used it quite effectively. And it's a supersonic, the world's best supersonic cruise missile. We are building a hypersonic missile. We are building AMCA, which is the 5th generation stealth fighter. We are building Kaveri engine, which is a ridiculously amazing technology because these are jet engines which we are building. We are building missions, the largest number of satellites in a single launch. We did it. Yes. We went to Chandra, the south pole of the moon, which nobody has gone since the last 3 years after we have gone there. It's been 2 years now. Still nobody has gone there. So we are doing some of the most amazingly difficult missions, but there is a support of the government there. There's a willpower of the government. It's not just ISRO is making Chandrayaan. There are 40 other industries which are part of it. So it does require that willpower. That I agree with you. The other trend I have observed is that we are obsessed with islands of excellence. So there's a whole category of institutions called Institution of Eminence. Since we are an education institution, we can talk about it. Institution of Eminence can get a government contract without any bidding. Now that curtails growth at a regional level. So if you were the king of a kingdom and your kingdom's best carpenter was there, of course the best carpenter knows how to handle sharp objects, but that doesn't mean that you should ask him to open the barber shop, right? Yes. The barber shop requires a different level of skill which you should inculcate in somebody else. India needs to trust beyond those institutions of eminence. The talent of India does not reside solely in IITs and IIMs. I'm coming from one system, I'm still telling you that. It's not that. India's talent also relies on its regional little institutions, people in smaller towns. That is where innovation has to be encouraged. You will not see that happening. All your incubation centers and all our eminence of institutions of eminence get all the money. And that's a government push. But there's no rigorous competition to be an innovation champion if you are not those institutions of eminence. It's very difficult. So I think that is something which we need to change. We need to believe that India has more talent than just what goes to the JEE exam. Right. It has much more talent, right?
Absolutely. Mr. Jhamb, I want to bring your perspective in on that because as Mr. Dasgupta has pointed out and Mr. Srijan has also now opined on it, the fact that yes, we do have a lot of young people coming up, young blood coming up that wants to do something. They want to make their mark. It's today said that it's better to be a business owner than to be working for someone else. You get a lot of control over your own time, energy, mind space, etc. And I'll come to that, to the mental health aspect of it in just a bit. But I want to understand from your perspective, what do you think then hinders us from doing what they've just said is just breaking that barrier in terms of thought process and really taking that leap in terms of innovation. Although I can say that I work very closely with the space sector, so does Sir, and some of our young minds in India have done absolutely brilliant work as far as space startups are concerned. So of course we are taking that leap, but they have their own challenges that they face as well. But from your perspective, you know, how does one break that mental barrier?
Thanks, Devika. I must admit, first I'm still in trance after listening to you. I almost lost my script and I said, "Meri bari aayegi to mujhe yaad rahe mujhe kya bolna hai," because I got enamored by the man here and then he spoke. So an advice to all of you, never be the third speaker in the panel. I'm jealous of you as well because you don't have to answer and do the heavy lifting. Someday you will. But thank you for the question, Devika. Now, I have a point to make, and the point quietly, with humility, sits on both of your shoulders. They're both talking about the potential India has. She's talking about the potential India has. But I want to give you an alarming statement. In the last 10 years, 20,000 crore has been spent in the name of raising funds to get milk to your doorstep in 10 minutes. And that's the problem. You see, दूध नहीं चाहिए था जल्दी, पढ़ाई चाहिए थी, सेहत चाहिए थी, defense. The startups in the defense, specifically in drone, have done a great job. But where the money is going is in the game of valuation, not necessarily value. So we can claim that we have a lot of startup culture, and I agree that it's a new buzzword. Sanjeev Bikhchandani started Naukri.com. Back in the year is one of your alumni from IIM Ahmedabad. Startup किसी को पता भी नहीं था. He started Naukri when even if the internet wasn't known to people. So the problem is that a business is built right now with the intent to make it 200 crores so that it could be sold for 500 crores, and the investors who are now making the business could then make money from the money. And that's the defect to my mind in the entire value chain. I think Piyush Goyal on a large platform said it controversially that agar hum Swiggy or Blinkit chalate rahenge, then when are you going to solve for larger problems?
Yes.
And that's the shift China has gone through. That's the shift, thankfully, US is going through. At least what Trump is trying to do. He might be bully for us, but he's doing well for his people. He's offering greatness back. He's offering hope and promise back that तुम great थे तो तुमको मैं वापस वहीं पे लाके महसूस करवाऊंगा. But the point we are trying to make here is that when you raise funds, when you look at businesses, when people want to start businesses, you must want to start something which is impactful, which has meaning, which has benefit to the society. And then you don't have to worry about longevity of the business. When you are in the business of getting milk and what else does my wife order every morning? Anda. Yeah. Groceries. Yeah, thank you for that word. When you're in the business of getting groceries and 20,000 crore rupees have been spent already, more to be raised with no sense of a decent bottom line, you have a larger problem. You're fancied and infatuated because the funds are flowing easily. Look, why did EdTech didn't do well? None of the EdTech players in the EdTech industry made money, but the grocery guys made money because it's easy business. You're solving for instant gratification. You're not solving for long-term impact. So, and that's the point I want to make to you, that if the Indian businesses and the young blokes like us and like us, if we are investing and if we are raising funds, but we're not applying the lens of a little bit of purpose and a little bit of mission, a little bit of value, then it's always going to be the game of valuation. Then you are in the business of building a company like a product which will be sold to somebody with the intent of making a lot of money out of it. You will have a very rich lifestyle, but you will have a very rich lifestyle. And that takes me to the last parting thought before I hand over to you guys. You know, I was in my MBA days and I used to read one book very carefully, diligently. It was The World is Flat. And then there was a sequel, and The World is Flat, Hot and Crowded. Yes, Thomas Friedman, I think. He spoke about a beautiful mentality which people have. It was called as I'll be gone, you'll be gone, who cares the shit? And that's where the problem might be. When you have to build a business ground up, you have to at some point of time let go of I'll be gone, you'll be gone. मैं तो अपना 500 crore निकालूं, मैं तो अपना 1000 crore निकालूं. And when I see investments, I see a pattern. When I see valuations, when I see term sheets, when I sit sometimes to do the diligence, which I genuinely like to do, I see that there is a problem. I see that 21-year-olds, 22, 25-year-olds, they want to start a business, but they can see the gaps. आपको truck में gap दिख सकता है, poultry में gap दिख सकता है, आपको mic से लेके bottle में हर जगह gap दिख सकता है, और आप हर एक चीज़ को automate कर सकते हैं by using AI. But everything need not be automated. Everything need not become a business idea of a startup to raise about 1,000 crores, 500 crores, 300 crores, 200 crores. And when you start applying that filter, then you start talking value and not valuations.
Amazing. And I'm so glad that you raised that point, because I have a dear friend who's in the wellness industry herself, and I'm not going to name any names here, but she went to people who are currently known as the masters of business valuation, and people who come on podcasts and give a lot of their yarn there about what are the next businesses, etc. And she was really heartbroken, because they very clearly told her that your yoga, etc., we don't have time for that, because our next big focus is going to be wearables, because that's where the money is. So I'm glad that you raised that point, because a great business idea was really just rubbished, because everyone is looking at valuations. But Ankit, then that brings me to my next question to you, which is the role that psychological resilience and adaptability can play in helping our entrepreneurs and innovators in terms of just tiding over these very volatile times that we're living in.
I think it's a big support, a big question there. I don't know if you followed the news yesterday. Somebody created a bot, and the bot's supposed to be a therapist. And two Indians made a bot, one Indian and one some other nationality. They made a bot, and it's a therapy bot. Okay, now going to be offered to the large masses at nominal costs. What they've essentially done is they've institutionalized, offered therapies to masses. And one of the founders said that I've had a long-standing battle with depression. And I realized that how difficult is it for someone my age to speak to parents, speak to people. So I wanted to create a bot, use data. And that's the kind of product which has the capacity to challenge the stereotype or the stigma attached. Not just that, if you look at some of the early stage business models, they have the ability to take data from your biomarkers, vitamin D deficiency, put that data, create that into a predictive analytics model, and can help you predict depressive tendencies. Closer home, my nephew had a breakup, and the first person to be called after the breakup was ChatGPT. You got a world-class therapist sitting at home, and I didn't get the first call. You know why? He said रात के 3 बज रहे थे, आप सो रहे होगे, दिल उस वक्त टूटा, तो एक ही इंसान मौजूद था, ChatGPT. So the shift has happened, the ship has sailed. People are already asking questions depending upon AI a lot. The question is, can we supply what holds some sort of relevance and meaning? And that does require resilience, that requires breaking the pattern. Basic fundamental of when to raise funds, according to me, is not a question of maths or statistics. It's a question of basic psychology. How long can you hold the gratification? How long can you not fall for the temptation of quickly becoming wealthy and rich? How long can you stay bootstrapped? Look at Zerodha. What a beautiful business model. Completely bootstrapped for the longest time. And you will have some of these amazing startup stories where they kept bootstrapped. They said, "Kam badhenge, lekin lamba badhenge." And then you will have these fly-by-night, fly-in-the-wall, flash-pan stories where they raised 500 crores and they didn't know what to do with it.
Yes.
And then you realize that the founders took more money collectively, more than the salary expenses. And then you realize that their cash burn was so much. They spent money on performance marketing, digital marketing, growth marketing, and they got nothing. Because it doesn't guarantee you success. Staying in the market guarantees you a certain amount of loyal customer base, and that has nothing to do with raising funds. Unfortunately, it's not a problem of mathematics or raising funds. For me, it's a psychology problem. It's a pattern of behavior. And on the same note, I want to answer Amal's question, who's तेरे सर में दर्द हो रहा है, तू ऐसे सर पकड़ के बैठा भाई. He asked a beautiful question, and I want to answer that if you want to study a subject other than everything else, please study psychology, study behavioral economics, study consumer behavior. I see everything from the lens of psychology. I understand stock markets and mutual funds and Trump through the lens of that. It teaches you to see patterns in behaviors and systems, and then you make sense of things faster than most people will be able to make sense of things.
Okay, all right. On that note, I want to bring in Dr. Jones Mathew into the conversation as well. Dr. Mathew, I want to understand from you, firstly your thoughts on the big word in the room, tariffs, and how do you propose that we prepare the generation ahead as far as these volatile times are concerned?
Thank you for the question. Volatility is not new, right? It's been with us for many decades, I suppose. And I think only the difference has been the speed at which it's changing, right? And I think speakers before us, Shri Prabhu also talked about it. The challenge is, are we good enough to adapt to this change, this rate of change which is happening? Are we psychologically prepared for this? Are we going to play the victim card? Are we going to play the nobody's going to put us down card, right? It's up to us actually. So my take on this issue is basically tariffs is something that Trump brought in a big way, like a sledgehammer. He was not kind about it. He was not polite about it. He said that it's my way or the highway. All of us literally had to fall in line. Some of us are standing our ground. Going forward, it's a matter of give and take. As you said, August 15th is a big day. Probably things may take a change, but since this gentleman is known for not being predictable, our skin in the game is to be ready for anything. We've already been hit with 50%, which is very heavy. The government has already charted out certain pathways to revert on this or to engage with them. Shripalji talked about diversification. I'm saying that let's build redundancy as well,
yes,
right? So that in case plan A doesn't work, we have plan B or plan C. And I think we were good enough, we were one of the best countries in the world during COVID to really plan that out after the whole event happened. Today we have supply chains which are not dependent on the usual players. We have built resilience within our own country. The good thing is also that we are not so dependent. I mean, our market is large enough to support us on many things. Our domestic demand is huge.
Yes.
There's a lot of potential there. It's being tapped on multiple fronts. Despite all of this nonsense, Tesla opens up 2 showrooms here, right? So I'm just saying that there is a lot of things to be still done, and our take on this should be, let's not just wait and watch. Wait and watch is okay. I mean, it's a lazy way of doing things. Let's be proactive about it. For example, what steps have we already taken at business levels or at the government levels or the policy levels, knowing that the next 12 or 18 months is not going to be certain or stable? Mm-hmm. What have you put on the ground? What plans have you, communicated to the people? Those are the things that we should look at right away as a response to this tariff. Is it going away, this tariff problem? No, I don't think it's going away. Not in the near future, at least. Yes. Because Mr. Trump and his administration has a point to prove. And like Dr. Dasgupta said, he's met with successes. He's beaten down the preachiest organization in EU, as rightly mentioned. He's tasted blood. He's already campaigning for the Nobel Prize for Peace. He's getting countries to vote for him.
Which he may as well get.
Which he might as well get, yeah. You never know. So he's on that swinging spree. I don't think the tariff, for at least the near future. That's my take on it.
Then, Mr. Jones, I want to understand from you, what role do you think business schools particularly need to play in terms of just training young minds, as Ankit was also pointing out, that there's only so much, in fact all panelists have pointed out, there's only so much that a business school or lectures or curriculum can teach you, but there has to be then a switch in how we're training young minds. I think it's more about training young minds to think, and that's a conversation we've been having since I was in school, right? That you should teach people how to think. I don't think that we've made that switch yet in terms of really teaching people how to think rather than what to think. What are you doing for that?
Well, one of the things that we have done is this roundtable. Right? Thank you. For the longest time, we've been talking about geopolitics and the impact on economics, but we never had specialists coming here and talking about us one-to-one.
Yes.
It was always proxy, second hand, second level, etc. You would read about stuff, but we organized this so that globalization or internationalization, we don't want our students to think of it as something esoteric. We want them to embed it in our curriculum. It doesn't have to be taught as a separate subject, but these workshops and this past 1.5 hours or 2 hours and the conversations that we've had and the students have listened to, we believe that that could be one first step. Before this, we actually had a lot of diplomatic, we had the ex-president of Romania come in, we had the Israeli embassy official here. So we are already in that, on that pathway to make our students not just study about the usual fundamental stuffs of the marketing and operations and supply chain and finance, etc., but also to have a more holistic perspective of the world that they will inherit or the world that they are currently living in. And it's our job as a B school to ramp this up as much as possible so that our students have more than just knowing about what's happening in a program. They are more conscious about how other things globally are going to affect us locally.
Okay, and one last question to you before we move to our rapid fire segment, because we're short on time today, but I want to understand from you. I was actually speaking to one of the ministers from a European nation, and he gave a very interesting anecdote of how he was the Minister of Culture and Innovation. And I asked him why. How does culture and innovation, how does that make sense? And he literally said that because in our country, we want innovation to be the culture. We always think culture is about traditions and those sort of things. But in our nation, we really want innovation to become the culture, and therefore we have a Ministry of Culture and Innovation so that we can really imbibe that ethos into our culture. Your thoughts on the same, and is that something that you think India now needs to move towards doing?
As Shipalji said, that we've had an entrepreneurial innovation, culture for centuries, maybe millennia. Okay, but having come as far as we have done, we do have a system where people are not as risk-friendly as we would like them to be. Right? And there could be multiple economic, social factors which are at play here.
Interesting.
Yeah. So our experience with the innovation as a culture part could be okay as far as academic curriculum changes are concerned or bringing in new courses are concerned. But if you want students to really jump on the innovation bandwagon and start up a startup, that's easier said than done.
Yes.
Because that is something which comes from a deep desire inside. When you're worried about your career, when you're worried about getting a job straight out of the program, the courage to take up a startup and run it through with all the nightmares that you live through, it's not an easy thing to do. So what happens is that although we would like to, in fact we are working on building that culture by setting up an incubation center and having people from the innovation domain come and speak about it. We have courses on design thinking and so on and so forth. It's a psychological thing. It's a psychological thing. It's a social thing. And the good thing is that in the last few years, we've seen more and more people succeeding, but the proportion is still not very high. like 150,000 odd registered startups,
Yes.
I would also like to know what is the closure rate. How many have shut down for want of funds, want of talent, want of courage, want of staying power? It's not easy, right? So therefore, what we have observed is that most young people like to work for 3-4 years, make some money, get some courage, understand the different parts of the business outside of a B school, and then probably venture out and start innovation, right? I mean, startup as organization. As far as the culture is concerned, it's our job as a B school to make it possible for people to experiment and fail if necessary.
Okay.
That's the tough part.
Before I come to the rapid fire, then I want one quick answer from all our panelists on this. Ankit, I'll start with you.
Is it rapid fire?
No, it's not yet. But where do you think we're lacking in terms of just energizing the young people of India? Because that's what I also feel. You know, we're living in an era of social media where again, it's quick gratification. So you have companies that are doing really well, which is again based on quick gratification. You have social media that's based on quick gratification. From a psychological point of view, do you somewhere feel that that's something that we're not talking about and we should talk about, the impact that it's having on a person's ability to pick a career or a career path and then perhaps stick it out, because it is difficult. And you know, I'm sure everyone sitting on this panel has really stuck it out. I've been in the media business for like 10 odd years, but that's now really unknown. You know, you have people that want a job for a year, then they want the next thing, then they want the next thing, next, and we're not really, are we going somewhere with that?
It's a great question, And the short answer to that is that we'll have to make boring sexy. You'll have to come to terms to life that most of the things which you end up doing will have an element of monotony. And when I do therapies with young adults and teens and etc., they have a habit of getting infatuated with something and then moving on to something. So when you do that, you don't really, as they say, as in river rafting language, they'll say that you don't go to the gehrai of what you're doing. A craft offers some sort of surrender and sacrifice. And I don't think if you flirt with things, you get to see the sacrifice. So you don't get to see the depth of it. So while you can travel horizontally, but at some point of time you have to stop and you say that I'm going to give 10 freaking years to my life to do the same thing, and I would get to know the vertical depths of this as well. That's missing. Too much of a shift, too much of a flirt, too much of a one-night stands with career professions and vocations and pursuits just leaves you with an excellent LinkedIn post, nothing else.
Okay. Dr. Mathew, your thoughts on this thing?
Could you just repeat the question, sorry?
Just trying to understand from your perspective, I see this a lot in young people because I'm also now in a mid-management position where I'm recruiting more and more kids coming in and not wanting to stick to a particular job they thought was their dream, and then they do it and they want to move to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
I think probably that's a generational characteristic, right? It is, right? As older people who stuck in a job for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, that may look very untraditional. But I think that's the new world, right? People do get bored very quickly. In fact, I don't know how many of us order from the same restaurant on Dine Out, right? Hardly ever. We're constantly experimenting. And I think that's not a bad thing to have, but only thing is that, as they say, rolling stones don't gather moss, right? So you don't really pick up all the skills that you need if you're switching too fast, right? Now, some skills are transferable from one industry to another industry, and you may be able to, for example, a media journalist in a print media may have certain common things which could also be used in TV, right? Could be. I'm just guessing. So those things could be carried forward from one to the other industry as you shift. But if you really want to make a mark, and I don't think any of the startup guys have decided to quit after 1 year, right? When they launch a product, they always want it to be the next Facebook or the next Meta or whatever else. That's their dream. The question is, do you have the mental stamina to play that out, right? Too fast movements across different domains only leaves you a little disoriented, I think, at times. while you may also have the ability to pick up some common skills which you can carry forward. There are a lot of people who do zigzag through their career, and they move it very fast, from automobiles to engineering to consulting to FMCG, and still they do very successfully for themselves, right? So it's not a complete no-no, but if you could spend a little bit more time, my take on this is that you would be able to add much more to yourself and to the organizations that you serve.
Okay, Dr. Swapan Dasgupta, your thoughts on the same?
Well, I'm not the best person to sort of talk on this, but all I can say is that, you know, the culture in Japan, for example, has been that you join a company and you retire from the company. I mean, that's been a feature of Japanese, and I can't say that Japan is a country which lacks dynamism, innovation, etc. So, on the other hand, there are other models which can be equally applicable, and so I think one of the problems of India is that we are a country which has a huge unevenness in everything we do. That it's so difficult trying to generalize on any. You know, for instance, those who experience the B schools are such a small slice of the population, and the exposure they get, their aspirations or even their restlessness is something which is completely out of sync with most of the population. So we have a thing that India produces. Take for instance the educational institutions. We have some of the best students coming in who are globally as competitive as you can get. At the same time, if you look at the average, the mean, you find there's a precipitate drop. And there are colleges, etc., whose it's not worth anything.
Yes.
I mean, the education is not worth anything. That degree is not worth anything. It's really not. They've neither got a skill, nor they've got an aptitude, nor any worthwhile experience from that. So we have to deal with this vast unevenness. Now, one of the features which in India, which is very, very unique, and which a lot of people are talking about, is that much of the startups, which I don't know if you have noticed, many of the interesting startup proposal, and I'm giving you the feedback of people who are professional investors in startups. Their feedback, and I think that matters because they're putting their money into certain ventures. The first thing is that most of the interesting startups are happening in smaller towns. Number one. Most of the people who have interesting, including deep tech startups, are not very conversant in English. That means they would rather their proposal is in Hindi or Tamil or some other language. In other words, there is also a sort of a class system which is building up. And I think we are not paying sufficient attention to that second rung of people in those towns, how they are doing, and why they are being exposed to indifferent education rather than something more quality-wise. So these are some of the challenges which are there, and I think if we are able to provide a certain basic minimum standard and a high standard, after that, if there is restlessness, I think that's all for the good. But if that restlessness comes partly because of boredom or because of some other factor, then there are problems in the country.
Okay, Dr. Srijan Singh, your thoughts on the same before we move on to the rapid fire.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be slightly contrarian to what is being said here. I don't think being a high velocity job switcher is the same as being disloyal. Unless you breach a contract, verbal or written, you are free to move as much as you want. It's your call, it's your risk. But remember that, and since you're all, most of you are students, Remember that reputation, trust, relationship are built over time. They take time to bake. Money can be made by high velocity. It is your call, what you want. Entirely your call. I will not prescribe or proscribe any particular path. Having said that, this is the reality. As institution builders, or if you are running a startup, eventually if you are planning that, build an ecosystem where you will have 10% people who will be more permanent and 90% people will keep running within 1 year. I run one, I know that. I know who are my permanent pillars and I know who will come 3 months, 4 months, 1 year, and they will go. No prejudice on either side. They will write you nice reviews on Ambition Box and you will give them a nice recommendation letter. But that's the way of the game. We are living in a time when all of us right now are scrolling reels and expecting the younger people to be more committed to long-term videos. That's not going to happen, right? But innovate within that. So one of the things, if I run a YouTube channel also, I just teach on reels. So it will be a YouTube short, 3-minute videos in multiple parts, and we teach something. 5-part series you can see on BrahMos, but it's a YouTube short. So innovate within that. Don't try to change the ecosystem. I belong to a different generation. I did my schooling in 2002. I finished my schooling. I can't put my ways on you, and you cannot put your ways on the next generation. We can only adapt. We expect young people to do certain things which we prescribe, but we refuse to innovate to suit that market, I feel. So I don't build YouTube long videos at all. It's all shorts. So these are all shorts. 3 minutes into 5. 15 minutes I can show you that way, but I cannot show you a 15-minute video if it comes with a 15-minute tag. And that's the way of the world. So I think this is what it is. I don't see anything per se wrong in it. In fact, I work with a lot of universities. I can tell you one thing, and I don't know whether I should say here. Maybe you'll not call me the next time. But I think a 4-year BTech degree is nonsense, having done that. Okay, and you know why I say that? In 2015, the final book of Dr. Kalam, which we co-authored together, was called Advantage India. I'm giving you stats on this. We went on to calculate what is the life of knowledge. And knowledge, I mean not like wisdom wali knowledge, but the information and skills wali knowledge, right? And we said, okay, so we used a term called half-life of knowledge. Half-life, if you're an engineer, you'll know what a half-life is. Half-life is, for example, this is a radioactive material. How much time will it take for half of it to decay? And then the same time will take for another half to decay, and another half, and so on. Half-life of knowledge. Guess in 2015 what was the half-life of the top end of the skills? Take a guess. 1 year? Slightly more. Actually, is almost correct. 13 months in 2015. Guess what it is today?
3 months.
3 months. It's actually 4 months. So 4 months, everything which I can teach you at the top end of the curve of technology, half of it becomes irrelevant, useless. Now imagine you're doing a BTech, which is supposed to be a technical course of 4 years. What you learned in your BTech first semester, calculate. Some 93.75% becomes irrelevant by the time you graduate. You don't need, even in education, you don't need these long haul degrees.
I hope
You're okay with that, right?
professors are also listening. Everyone's listening, and you certainly woke up all the students with that answer of yours, because I saw a lot of heads popping up like meerkats.
How many of you have BTech? Raise your hand. I'm one of them. See?
Yeah. So all of them seem to agree. But we're going to swiftly move on to the rapid fire segment. This is more relevant to our younger audience here. I'm going to request everyone to just keep their mics handy for this, so that we can move across the panel. And we'll start with Ankit and we'll end with Dr. Pal, and we'll keep that order on. You didn't want to be the third speaker, so here's your chance.
So I get to be the fourth.
Yes. So I'm going to ask one question, and then we'll move across the panel, and then the next. One thing you believe is fundamentally misunderstood about India's economic potential?
That we are dead economy?
Yes.
The growth in GDP automatically translates in better standard of living.
Okay.
I think that there's a common misconception that we lack self-confidence. I think we have an overdose of it.
So here comes the overdose. I think the belief that we can only work at the lowest end of technology. I think we can do a lot, and we are doing a lot more at the top end. We do innovate. It's just that CNN will not show you that.
Okay, that brings me in fact to my next question. Ankit, which emerging technology is most likely to change daily life in India in the next 5 years?
Sorry, say that again.
Which emerging technology will change daily life in India in the next 5 years?
AI already has, but I have high hopes on the robotics. It hasn't resulted into much advantage at the moment, but it will.
Drones, drone tech.
Very important sector.
Not my area of competence.
Education. It has to transform. It has to transform, but that will be the catalyst for everything else.
Okay, that brings us to our next question. What's one existing business in India that you invest in right now and why?
Education always for the last 5 years and for the next 5 years still.
Okay.
Absolutely, education.
Invest, you mean actually put your money?
I mean, hypothetically put your money.
You can put my money also into it.
There's a lot of money.
If you had the money, where would you put it?
Oh no, I'd put it into consumer. I'd put it into consumer durables. That's where it's really the growth is. That's where the innovation is. I mean, just add a thing. You know, something like Blinkit. I don't think anybody, for a country like India, amazing. It's just astonishing. Anybody in the West, if we were to actually replicate it in the West, can you imagine? Just can imagine that. You actually get something in 5 minutes. And that, to my mind, was real innovation. That's where I put my money in. How India manages to, with a jugaad, you can actually manage a solution.
Absolutely.
So is it from the ROI perspective, or it's like...
No, it's just an open question. I don't want to get into
So
technicalities.
besides education, since everybody said that, I would put money on geriatric care. India will turn aged, and we need a lot more to be done for the elderly. We really need to, not just from an ROI perspective, but from the acceptance of the fact that all these things and pillars of development in airports which stands on the hard work of that generation which is now aging.
Amazing.
Most of your parents, basically.
Interesting. Ankit, back to you. What is the biggest challenge facing young Indian professionals today?
I think the larger cloud of mental well-being, stress, and the inability to rest.
Okay.
The ability to be resilient.
Okay.
That what, yeah.
Resisting the temptation of quitting India.
So the question is, what is lacking?
The biggest challenge facing young Indian professionals?
I think the lack of understanding of our own cultural roots and banking on it and building on it and respecting it.
Ankit, back to you. We've touched upon this briefly, but what is the one skill every college student should master before graduating?
Discipline, boredom, and temporary gratification.
There's a whole bunch of them, but yeah, I think I'll just go with. I think I'll just go with the ability to believe in themselves a little more than what they do. I think that skill is very, very important.
The ability to express their thoughts succinctly. That is a skill which I think is very uneven and is lacking in a lot of
Absolutely, I 100% agree with that.
I think the ability and the courage to unlearn. Believing that one college degree is the last leg of education you'll ever get in your life and never need in your life, those are the days are gone. You will have to earn a degree every month, every 3 months, which may not be a formal piece of paper, but your own mental understanding has to keep changing. So don't love what you know, but don't be arrogant about your own knowledge. Right? That I think is very important.
Coming to the next, which major city in the world or in India do you see as the next big hub for innovation and why? Bangalore.
No, I think focus has moved away from that. Indore is doing some amazing business for Chandigarh. These like, I agree with him. There is very good stuff happening beyond the glamour and the glitz of Tier 1.
Yeah, Indore and Jaipur probably. There's a lot of stuff happening in Jaipur.
I mean, pick a Tier 2 town and I think you could really, any one of them could probably make it.
Yeah, broadly Tier 2 towns, but also I would, if I want to pinpoint one, I would say Lucknow. The amount of work which is happening in terms of infrastructure building, artificial intelligence-based, ventures coming in, and the sheer strength of, and I'm a little biased, I'm from Lucknow, the sheer strength of the young minds in Uttar Pradesh who have been untapped since independence. I think that unleashing of Uttar Pradesh is happening as we see it, and I have strong faith in Lucknow being one of the leaders, not just nationally but globally.
Okay, interesting. One thing the Indian government is doing right in a particular policy sector.
I can't comment on the policy sector, but I like when we speak about Made in India, reinstilling the faith back and making people believe that you've got something worth to cherish for. I like that sentiment. I really like that sentiment.
Thank you. Dr. Mathew?
I think Startup India, basically, going back to the whole argument about not enough being done in that area and more can be done. I think the government has done a lot of things in that domain, and it's up to the younger generation to really take off from there.
Making business seem a virtue rather than a crime.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. I think also unleashing the linguistic barrier, this whole obsession, and it's ironical that we're speaking in English, but this whole obsession that if you know English, that's the only way for you to be in a certain stratum of the society. Breaking that, especially with the NEP now saying that you can be in any language and there can be mobility. Restoring respect back to our own root languages is extremely important. And I'm not just talking about Hindi, I'm talking about Tamil, I'm talking about Telugu, depends on where you are.
Okay, one thing that the Indian government you think is doing wrong in a particular policy sector that you would want corrected?
Selling too much, a lot of propaganda, a lot of incorrect social media, I would say. Again, not a policy answer, but that's my
view. Okay.
Overkill.
Yeah.
I would tend to agree. We need a little greater dose of modesty.
I think the pain of compliance. Running an enterprise, and I can tell you from first-hand example, almost a quarter to one-third of my time, and more importantly my attention, goes in compliance issues. You invariably will get a tax notice, and I don't know how many of you have got it, and I've got many. You'll get it at 1 a.m. in the night. Why does it happen? And it is like, you check, if it's wrong, we'll punish you. If it's not, ignore. By that time you lost your sleep. Okay, so this whole, attitude. This attitude, we have to be, and you were rightly pointing out that this is one of the things which has happened, but I think, sir, much more has to be happening in this front. You do a startup, you'll know. I got foreign funding, RBI sends me a notice every year in August. GST sends you a notice for no reason, right? Something has gone wrong, but it's not wrong, ignore. Okay, then income tax will send you a notice. So all these things will keep happening, and there's nothing. The cost of compliance is very high in time, attention, and money. It cannot be afforded by startups. So startup India is good, but
this is also the same. Like, I'm secretary for an NGO. It's a nightmare dealing with all the notices that you get. I mean, and we are not even a big one. I mean, we are just 4 states. And we spend half the time just answering to different bodies, demanding certain documents and this and that. Our FCRA thing is in pending for 1.5 years now.
Only?
I mean, yeah, for us, we had a little bit of money coming from abroad, and that's been on hold for so long. Yeah.
Okay, I have last 2 questions. One book that everyone in this room should read to understand India's future.
Oh God. I'm just tuned to selling my books, so I can't think of any other author.
Okay, then I'll change it. One book that everyone in this room should read, regardless of who's future.
Read Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and my books too.
There's a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a great author on entrepreneurship, and it's not just about setting up your own business, but just being entrepreneurial in everything that you do. His set of books I would recommend for people.
I'm still fascinated by reading and rereading and rereading the Mahabharata, because every single human problem that comes up is somewhere there.
I'm absolutely with you. In fact, nobody is going to read Mahabharata, so I can recommend you to go to YouTube and watch B.R. Chopra's Mahabharata. Really, I mean, as a child I saw it, didn't understand much of it. It was a war for me. It was like a nice movie. Now if you go, you can relate multiple personalities within you with the personalities out there. So definitely do that. If you want like a text book, sort of a book to read, you can, of course, since we are allowed to recommend our own books, you can read Advantage India, which is by Dr. Kalam. I'm just a co-author. And you can read What Can I Give? That's another, life is about small successes. It's about daily success. It's about being a better version of yourself on a daily basis. So, whether you need a book, if you're so motivated that you need a motivation book, you're already motivated. And so I don't know which motivation book can I recommend you. But I think Sir was right. It's Mahabharata, and there's one. If you read about India, I'm a great buff of history. I love that. There's a book called Anarchy. I think it's by William Dalrymple. You should read it, and it gives you the nuances of your cultural history, especially in the medieval time and onwards. It's a beautiful tapestry of how everything in India was interlinked. So you should definitely do that. You'll get some eye-opening facts, some contradictory stories to your popular belief, but totally worth it. You'll be a smart talker after that.
Okay, my last question before we wind this up. What does resilience mean to you?
Bounce back, bounce back, bounce back. Yeah, stand up again.
To me, it means you stick by your country through good times and bad times, and don't change your passport.
Don't change your passport. Resilience to me means being able to build your own brand as a human being and defend it. And I'll take since this is the last one, right? So I will just stretch it a little bit. And I draw it for an example, and I'll give you that example. It is very useful for the people who are students out here, and also we are all students of life. It happened in Missouri, the Labasna, Lal Bahadur Shastri National, where the IS officers are trained. Dr. Kalam was taking a lecture. All these young recruits are there. And Dr. Kalam had this whole thing of giving an oath, right? Can you repeat after me that oath? Can you do that? Right? It is his words. I will work with integrity and succeed with integrity. Now the problem was work with integrity, high volume, succeed with integrity, low volume. Okay. So, but anyway, these are the leaders of this nation, bureaucrats. Then the Q&A happened. Now the Q&A, usually what happens is, at like in that academy and many other institutions, you have this front row who have written questions, which they read it out. So he said, I want someone from behind, spontaneous question. This young girl, who's an IS officer, she raises her hand and asks a very good question. She says, sir, you said work with integrity, succeed with integrity. I will work with integrity. But if there is somebody who pressurizes me to write this, to approve this, and somebody senior officer, some big neta is saying that, what do I do? If my minister says do it, how do I say no? If I say no, I cannot succeed, because then I'll be transferred. So I'm open to work with integrity, but I can't succeed with integrity. Very good question. I was also like, ab to jawab phas gaye, hai na? Dekhte hain kya jawab dete hain. So then he said something which I want to share with you. He said, I worked about 6 decades in government, different positions, starting as a scientist to the president, and even afterwards. He said, I would have signed in today's term nothing short of 2-3 lakh crore worth of document. Right? Aaj ke worth mein 10 lakh crore ho gaya hoga. He said, I worked with all kinds of officers, all kinds of netas, all kinds of political leaders, social leaders, all kinds of. But he said, at no point in my life, anybody asked me to sign anything which was not right. Which was never. He said, why? Because they knew I had a brand of integrity. Your brand becomes your biggest kavach. It becomes a defense.
How beautiful.
To everything which is negative. I want you to today focus on building that brand.
Well, that's an absolutely wonderful thought for us to conclude this amazing discussion that we've had, and hopefully everyone sitting here, be it the students, be it the professionals, had something that they can take away from this conversation that we've had. Once again, thank you so much to all of our speakers for being here today. Thank you so much, Chahat, for making us a part of this discussion, and to many more.
Thank you to you as well.